I should have known my life was too normal to last. Picture it, a suburban Friday night in America, the kind where families pile into SUVs. The neon happy hour signs flicker across strip mall parking lots, and the only thing heavier than the smell of fried wings is the illusion of stability. Every week, my wife and I went to the same neighborhood bar. It wasn't glamorous. Plastic menus, sticky with barbecue sauce, a jukebox that always broke halfway through Sweet Caroline, and the bartender Kyle, who had perfect teeth that made you think he was auditioning for a toothpaste commercial. He was the kind of guy that shook your hand too firmly, looked you in the eye a little too long, and said, "Bro," like he was building a secret army. And my wife? She played the role of doting partner perfectly. Smiles, small talk, ordering her usual vodka cranberry like she was auditioning for some suburban housewife reality show. I thought it was cute, part of our ritual. But now I realize this wasn't just ritual, it was surveillance. Every Friday night was a cover story. Every cheers was a coded message. And while I thought I was enjoying buffalo wings, they were plotting treason. The betrayal didn't hit me all at once. It seeped into my brain like cheap draft beer. I'd catch my wife laughing at Kyle's jokes, except they weren't jokes. They were signals, conspiratorial chuckles of toxic love disguised as bar banter. One night, I swear she touched his arm, and he didn't flinch. That's when I knew. This wasn't infidelity in the normal sense. No, this was a conspiracy straight out of a late-night talk radio segment. My cheating wife had joined forces with the bartender, and together they were dismantling my American dream one happy hour at a time. Do you know what it feels like to be betrayed inside a TGI Fridays knockoff? It's surreal. Families laughing at the next table, kids splitting mozzarella sticks, while in the corner booth, my marriage was being auctioned off for the price of 2-for-1 margaritas. This wasn't romance, it was organized crime. My wife wasn't just sneaking around, she was part of an underground resistance against monogamy. And the bartender? He was their general. I started noticing the signs everywhere. Kyle poured her drinks stronger than mine, classic psychological warfare. He'd give me light beer while she got premium whiskey. That's not service, that's treason. And every time she'd say, "Relax, honey, you're overthinking," I realized gaslighting wasn't just a TikTok buzzword, it was the soundtrack to my life. Here's the twisted part. In our American culture, betrayal doesn't come wrapped in dramatic violin music. No, it comes with football games playing on flat screens, fluorescent lighting, and a waitress who keeps calling you "hun." That's the cruel comedy of it. Infidelity wears khaki shorts and smells like cheap cologne. I began connecting the dots, because that's what you do when your heart is breaking. You turn detective, philosopher, and conspiracy theorist all at once. Why did she suddenly start wearing lipstick on Fridays, but not Sundays? Why did Kyle know her usual better than I did after 10 years of marriage? Why did her phone battery always die on nights we went to the bar? This wasn't coincidence. This was chess, and I was the pawn. In moments like that, you think about revenge. Not just ordinary revenge, but cinematic, America-sized revenge. Like blowing up the jukebox mid-song or exposing their betrayal during the bar's trivia night when the whole community is watching. But toxic love has a way of paralyzing you. Instead of storming out, I kept showing up every Friday pretending I didn't notice, because deep down I wanted to catch them in the act. I wanted the truth, raw and undeniable, so I could slam it down on the table like a DNA test on daytime TV. The truth, though, is stranger than fiction. Because once you suspect your wife of cheating, the entire universe feels like it's in on it. The neighbors suddenly wave too cheerfully. The bar's jukebox seems to play breakup songs on loop. Even the dog looks at you differently, like he knows you're the punchline in a cosmic joke. And me? I was becoming the paranoid narrator of my own downfall, pacing suburban sidewalks at night, replaying every laugh, every glance, every Friday drink order. Maybe it wasn't just cheating. Maybe it was bigger. Maybe Kyle was part of some nationwide bartender brotherhood, trained in the art of seducing married women, strategically placed in small-town bars across America to dismantle families one vodka cranberry at a time. And maybe my wife wasn't the victim of temptation. Maybe she was the recruiter. What if I was living inside a parody of marriage itself, a reality show no one bothered to film, where the punchline was me? By the time I reached that conclusion, I knew one thing for certain. The title, Cheating Wife, wasn't just a label. It was a warning, a prophecy, the headline to the conspiracy theory that was my life. And the cruelest part? Every Friday night I kept going back, because when your whole world is betrayal, you start to confuse poison for routine. You order another round, you laugh at the wrong jokes, and you pretend you don't see the knife in your back. That's how toxic love wins, slowly, quietly, under neon lights and half-priced appetizers. I wasn't born a detective, but by the time Friday rolled back around, I was wearing a thrift store trench coat in August and narrating my life like a late-night noir podcast. The story doesn't start where you think. No candlelit confrontation, no tearful confession. It starts with a receipt. A flimsy, grease-smudged American strip mall receipt where Kyle the bartender drew a tiny lime wedge next to my wife's signature and wrote, "See you after close." At first I told myself the winky face was just customer service. Then I noticed the back of the receipt had coordinates. Not an address, coordinates. Because when you're living in a parody of marriage, infidelity comes with map points like a treasure hunt for betrayal. So I drove my pickup out to the coordinates, rehearsing lines from every revenge fantasy I'd ever had, and found a self-storage facility with a climate-controlled unit labeled 51. Could have been Area 51 for all I knew. Inside, I discovered a plastic tub full of cocktail shakers, a black apron, and a laminated card titled, "The Order of the Lime Wedge, Initiation Rites." Step 1. Stir counterclockwise 3 times to unmake old vows. Step 2. Garnish with citrus to signal availability. Step 3. No pictures. It read like a church bulletin written by a mixologist with a vendetta against the American family. You want me to be rational, but you try staying rational when your cheating wife is apparently a seasonal employee of a secret bartender brotherhood that moonlights as a demolition crew for suburban marriages. I started piecing it together like the hero of a B-movie who knows the truth no one else sees. The night she began hot yoga, she came home smelling like orange bitters. On Halloween, she carved a lime into a jack-o'-lantern and called it Inside Joke. Thanksgiving, she volunteered to bring the cranberry sauce, and it was spiked so aggressively my uncle started confessing his fantasy football sins. Betrayal isn't always subtle. Sometimes it's poured over ice and handed to you with eye contact. The next Friday, I didn't walk into the bar as a husband. I walked in as an undercover agent of my own imploding life. I sat 2 stools down, ordered seltzer like a man trying to make good choices, and watched them perform their code. She'd twirl a straw. He'd mirror it. She'd tap the rim twice. He'd change the pour. These weren't drinks. They were messages. The jukebox played Tom Petty like it knew I was about to freefall without a parachute, and Kyle kept calling me bro with the cheerful menace of a gym influencer about to upsell creatine. When she got up to take a call, Kyle leaned in with that toothpaste commercial grin and said, "She's special." I said, "She's married." He nodded like we were discussing the weather and said, "A lot of weather out there, man." The reversal comes here, not at the end. I left early, on purpose. I gave them the stage, the parking lot neon, the smell of clove cigarettes on the patio. I circled the block and slipped back through the alley like a raccoon with hurt feelings. The kitchen door was propped open with a case of Miller Lite. Out back, under the rattling HVAC, I heard the kind of laugh my wife never gave me anymore, the throw-your-head-back, forget-the-world laugh reserved for toxic love affairs and Instagram stories you hide from your husband. I filmed shadows on cinder block, like every shaky iPhone exhibit in every courtroom drama. If this were a serious story, I'd tell you I confronted them there. But this is America, and we like our climaxes big and our timing bad, so I pocketed the evidence and did something worse. I joined their club. Don't look at me like that. You'd have done it too if you'd found the sign-up link on a bar napkin with a QR code that led to continuing education, mixology for community leaders. Saturday morning, I was at a strip mall classroom between a nail salon and a chiropractor, learning to muddle mint like it was a moral failing. The instructor wore a vest and said mouthfeel a lot. Week 1 was hospitality ethics, which translated meant how to make people tell you their secrets. Week 2 was garnish language. A lemon twist meant flirtation, a Luxardo cherry meant attachment, and a lime wedge, God help me, meant permission. It was the Rosetta Stone of cheating. Suddenly, every Friday night in my memory lit up like a crime board with red string. In the back row, a PTA mom from my son's school took notes with frightening speed. A guy in a HOA polo asked how to handle jealous spouses. The instructor laughed and said, "Pretend to be their friend." I wrote revenge across the top of my notebook like a teenager in detention. I started testing my new fluency in public, which is how you end up reading bars like tarot. At Applebee's, a couple argued in appetizer form. Her queso was a plea, his boneless wings a stonewall. At Chili's, a woman sipped a margarita with a salted rim so aggressively it qualified as a manifesto. I wasn't losing my mind. I was gaining a cursed literacy. My family text thread pinged with pictures of my wife at yoga, and all I saw were limes. Meanwhile, the Nextdoor app filled with posts about unusual late-night gatherings near the bar, and I heard a chorus of betrayed spouses learning the same language the hard way. In a country where everything is content, infidelity is just user-generated drama with better lighting. Eventually, I went back to the storage unit to see if Step 4 existed. It did, scrawled in marker behind the laminated card. The initiate must test the spouse. Offer friendship, offer a drink, offer a listening ear. If they confess, break the ritual. If they deny, continue the rite. It wasn't just cheating. It was a system, a ritual, a parody of church built around cocktails and plausible deniability. That's when I decided to stop playing defense. The noir hero finally grew a spine. I printed invitations to a mixology showcase at our house and told my wife it was a neighborhood fundraiser. She lit up like Christmas. She always loved a stage. I invited the PTA mom, the HOA guy, and yes, Kyle. I rehearsed every line, every feint, every reveal. I would flip the narrative mid-scene, invert the power, and make their secret code public in a way so American it would hurt. An at-home demo with a silent audience of Ring doorbells and a buffet from Costco. If you're expecting me to say I did it out of love for my family, don't. Love had mutated into something else. Hard, bright, surgical. Not cruelty, clarity. Revenge wasn't a brick through a window. Revenge was translation. Make them hear themselves. Make the town hear them. 2. When the night came and the doorbell chimed, I greeted Kyle like a brother, handed him a lime, and watched his eyes flick to my wife's mouth. That tiny gesture told me everything. The code was alive in my living room, pulsing like a neon sign. And for the first time since this began, I felt the momentum flip. Betrayal had been the music. Now I had the remote. This wasn't just a cheating wife story anymore. This was a parody coup, an American home-cooked conspiracy headed for a finale no one RSVP'd for. And I was finally the one writing the last act. The night of the showcase looked like any other suburban gathering. Folding chairs from Costco lined up in the living room, a crock-pot of suspiciously watery chili on the counter, neighbors in polos trying to look supportive. But beneath the surface it was theater, a staged trap where betrayal would be served neat with no chaser. My wife flitted around in her new red dress like the hostess of a reality TV reunion episode, the kind where people throw wine and reveal secret affairs. She believed this was her chance to show off community spirit. I knew it was my chance to crack the bartender brotherhood wide open. Kyle arrived last, carrying a leather bartender's kit like a samurai bringing his sword to the duel. He shook my hand with that toothpaste commercial grin, then winked at my wife so fast you'd miss it if you weren't trained in betrayal. But I'd graduated from their program. I saw everything now. Every wink, every lime wedge, every poisoned smile. The showcase began with innocent drinks, mojitos, old-fashions, margaritas. The neighbors clapped politely like they were watching a high school jazz band instead of a marriage assassination. I let Kyle do the work, his hands moving quick and precise, the kind of speed that only comes from years of practicing infidelity under fluorescent lights. My wife cheered him on, her laugh filling the room like an anthem of toxic love. Then came my move. I announced in my best PTA voice that we demonstrate the secret garnish language of bartenders. I handed out note cards. Lemon twist means flirtation. Luxardo cherry means attachment. Lime wedge means permission. The room chuckled like it was a parody workshop. Only Kyle and my wife froze. Their faces twitched, tiny betrayals hiding under polite smiles. The crowd thought it was satire. For us, it was war. To prove the point, I asked for a volunteer. Kyle, cocky as ever, stepped forward. I held out 3 garnishes and asked him to show us a friendly pour. He reached for the lime wedge without hesitation. That's when the neighbors gasped, not because they understood the code, but because of the way my wife's face lit up like a guilty neon sign. That split-second expression said it all. Betrayal decoded. I slammed the bar spoon on the counter like a gavel. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, "welcome to the toxic love conspiracy." For months, my cheating wife and this bartender have been conducting an affair right under our noses, using the sacred code of cocktail garnishes to disguise their infidelity. Now, in a serious story, this would be where silence fell and the room turned somber. But this was America, parody edition, and silence didn't stand a chance. Mrs. Thompson from down the street shouted, "I knew it! That's why my husband started ordering extra limes." The HOA guy whispered, "It's bigger than I thought." Someone's kid yelled, "Is this part of the show?" and grabbed a mocktail like it was popcorn. Kyle tried to defend himself with the classic line, "It's not what it looks like." My wife chimed in, "You're overreacting, honey, it was just fun." But their words crumbled under the weight of the evidence. I pulled out the receipt with the coordinates, the laminated bartender cult card, the video of their shadows laughing behind the bar. I spread it all on the coffee table like an FBI sting operation. The neighbors swarmed, snapping photos, live tweeting the scandal with hashtags like #Limegate and #Suburban Betrayal. My family's story had turned into public entertainment faster than you could say infidelity goes viral. The betrayal wasn't just mine anymore. It was community property, a spectacle, the perfect mix of toxic love and free entertainment. That's when Kyle snapped. He dropped his shaker, slammed a glass against the table, and declared, "You don't understand. This is bigger than us." He pointed at the laminated card. "The order of the lime wedge is everywhere. We don't just serve drinks. We serve truth. Monogamy is the real lie. We're liberators, not cheaters." He sounded less like a bartender and more like a cult leader at a drive-through revival. My wife nodded, eyes wild, as if betrayal had turned into religion. "He opened my eyes," she said. "You kept me trapped in family routines and Costco memberships. This isn't cheating, it's freedom." The crowd gasped again, some horrified, others intrigued. You could feel the line between parody and reality disintegrating. And that's when I flipped it again. If Betrayal was theater, then I was the playwright. I pulled out my last weapon, a lime wedge of my own, carved with the word revenge. I raised it high like Excalibur, then dropped it into a glass of plain water. The room went dead quiet. Kyle's eyes widened. My wife's face paled. Everyone waited for meaning. "New code," I said. "Water means betrayal washed clean. Lime means you're exposed. Revenge means the show's over." The crowd erupted, half cheering, half panicking. Phones buzzed with breaking news energy. The HOA guy declared it the greatest neighborhood meeting in history. The PTA mom clutched her pearls and muttered about divorce lawyers. My wife tried to storm out, but every Ring doorbell in the cul-de-sac had already recorded her downfall. The bartender cult wasn't broken, but in that moment, my little slice of suburban America had witnessed its first open rebellion. The infidelity conspiracy was no longer in the shadows. It was trending, memed, shared across Facebook groups faster than political arguments. Betrayal wasn't private anymore. It was content. And content in America is king. As the night wound down and the crowd dispersed, chilly untouched, folding chairs abandoned, I stood alone in my living room. Toxic love had been exposed, revenge tasted bittersweet, and the cheating wife who once smiled at me across the bar was now just a headline in our neighborhood's gossip cycle. And yet I knew it wasn't over. Conspiracies never end with one reveal. They multiply. They evolve. If Kyle was right, there were more bartenders, more coated limes, more families crumbling over cocktails. My story was just one episode in a nationwide series called Infidelity, the American Remix. I poured myself a plain glass of water, no lime, no garnish, and I swore that the next chapter wouldn't just be about surviving betrayal. It would be about hunting it. I always thought justice in America came in oak-paneled courtrooms with solemn judges and 12 angry jurors. Turns out, justice now comes live-streamed on YouTube with a gavel-shaped microphone and ads for meal prep kits running between testimonies. My cheating wife didn't just betray me, she became the star witness in the first-ever suburban trial hosted in a Holiday Inn conference room and broadcast like a reality show. The case? The People versus the Order of the Lime Wedge. The room was packed, neighbors, PTA parents, archers, and beers. Bartenders in matching vests, even a guy live commentating for TikTok. My lawyer wore a cowboy hat for dramatic effect, while Kyle strutted in with sunglasses like he was auditioning for a Netflix documentary titled Bartender Messiah. My wife sat at the defense table, sipping water with a lime wedge defiantly floating inside. As if to remind everyone that betrayal still had garnish, the prosecutor's opening statement was pure theater. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this isn't just a story about one cheating wife. This is about conspiracy, toxic love, and the systematic destruction of the American family, disguised as happy hour. The crowd roared like it was a wrestling match. Somebody in the back even chanted, "USA, USA," because in this country, betrayal is patriotism's evil twin. Kyle took the stand first, declaring himself a liberator from the chains of monogamy. He compared himself to George Washington, except instead of crossing the Delaware, he crossed boundaries. He explained the bartender code with the seriousness of a spy leaking government files. Lemons meant flirtation, cherries meant attachment, and limes, well, limes were revolution. The jury scribbled notes like they were attending a TED Talk on infidelity. Then came my wife, the star of the show. She adjusted her red dress, gave the cameras her best smile, and said, "I wasn't cheating, I was awakening. My husband lived in Costco and Sunday football. I chose passion over repetition. Family doesn't mean loyalty, it means finding yourself." Half the jury nodded like they'd just read an Instagram quote. The other half gasped at the audacity. My turn came. I didn't bring evidence this time. I brought theater. I rolled in a cooler filled with bottled water, each with a lime wedge floating inside. "Exhibit A," I said, handing them out like communion. "This is betrayal. This is infidelity disguised as refreshment. Taste it and tell me it isn't poison." The jurors hesitated, but a few sipped. They made faces, not because it tasted bad, but because it tasted like truth. The climax hit when I revealed the Step 4 card, the secret initiation rite that required testing the spouse. "They didn't just cheat," I thundered. "They experimented on me, on us, on the entire idea of family. And if they can dismantle one home with a lime wedge, they can dismantle America." The room erupted into chaos. One juror fainted. A PTA mom screamed. The TikTok live stream hit 2 million views. The judge, who looked suspiciously like a retired mall Santa, banged his gavel mic and said, "Order! This is highly irregular, but highly entertaining." He paused, stroked his fake-looking beard, and declared, "I rule in favor of the plaintiff. The order of the lime wedge is hereby dissolved, and all lime wedges in this county shall be confiscated immediately." Cheers shook the conference room. It was less justice and more halftime show, but in America, that's enough. Kyle was dragged out yelling about "the revolution will be garnished." My wife stormed off, muttering about toxic masculinity disguised as revenge. And me, I stood in the middle of it all, the betrayed husband turned whistleblower, showered in applause and hashtags. The story of my cheating wife wasn't just gossip anymore. It was myth, meme, legend. Infidelity exposed, betrayal avenged, toxic love defeated with courtroom theatrics. But here's the kicker. After the trial, I walked outside into the parking lot where neon lights flickered over the asphalt. A stranger leaned against a food truck, sipping a cocktail with a lemon twist. She raised her glass at me, smiled knowingly, and said, "It's never really over. We're everywhere." That's when I realized the conspiracy wasn't dead. The order of the lime wedge might have been banned in one county, but bartenders across America were still out there, mixing, laughing, plotting. My story was just one chapter. Somewhere, another husband was walking into a bar, trusting too much, blind to the code. I drove home that night, past strip malls and fast food billboards, feeling both victorious and haunted. Revenge had been sweet, betrayal had been exposed, but infidelity wasn't gone. It had just changed uniforms. Family, love, loyalty, these weren't absolutes anymore. They were drinks on a menu, available for order, garnished with secrecy. So I poured myself a plain glass of water when I got home. No lime, no lemon, no cherry, just water. Because maybe the only way to survive toxic love in America is to drink it straight. No illusions, no code, no garnish. And if I ever walk into a bar again, I won't be ordering. I'll be watching. Because once you've lived through the trial of a cheating wife, you don't just heal. You become a conspiracy theorist with a permanent thirst for the truth.